Today I'll be talking about resonance structures. So resonance structures are important in organic chemistry is because certain molecules, the bond lengths are not consistent with that observed experimentally. And so if we can draw a valid Lewis structures and more than one valid Lewis structure for a molecule or an ion, then we have to invoke the concept of resonance. So the actual structure of the molecule or the ion is then considered to be a hybrid of all the resonance structures. In certain cases, certain structures will be a major contributor towards the resonance hybrid, but in other cases, all resonance structures may be contributing equally. So in resonance structures, only the lone pair and the bonding pair, which is only the pi bond electrons, are in different locations in the resonance structures, since they are delocalized over the pair of atoms to which they belong. The symbol of resonance is a double-headed arrow, as shown. Molecules, carbocations, carbanions, and radicals, which have conjugated pi bonds and are p orbitals, are stabilized due to resonance. So in case of radical, you have a single electron in a p orbital. So resonance structures cannot be drawn through an sp3 hybrid carbon. That's very important to understand. Let's look at some examples. So in this example, this is an anion right here. It's a carbanion, and you have a triple bond. So you cannot draw a resonance structure because there is a sp3 hybrid carbon CH2 group right between the negative charge carbon and the triple bond. The same is true for benzyl alcohol. This is benzyl alcohol. This is a CH2 group, sp3 hybrid carbon, and the lone pair of electron on oxygen cannot be delocalized into the benzene ring because of the presence of a CH2 group between them. So let's look at some of the rules of that govern the drawing of resonance structures. So whenever you're drawing the resonance structures, you have to make sure that the atoms do not move. They are in the same position. Okay. The only thing that can move is the lone pair as well as the bonding pair, which is the pi bond electrons. The third rule is you need to maximize the number of atoms with octet of electrons. So each atom prefers a complete octet. The exception is third row elements like phosphorus and sulfur that can expand its valence shell. The molecule will prefer not to have any charge on any atom, except when they have to satisfy the octet rule. And we'll come across an example regarding this rule. The last rule is if a charge is present on the atom, then the most electronegative atom will bear the negative charge, and the least electronegative atom will bear the positive charge. Separation of charges should be kept at a minimum. So let's look at some examples. So this is an example of the formate ion right here, and you have a negative charge on the oxygen. This negative charge can jump on and to form the carbon oxygen double bond, whereas the electrons from the pi bond can jump onto the oxygen. So you can see the negative charges jumping between the two oxygens in case of formate ion, and the actual structure is a resonance hybrid of the two structures. Both the structures are equally contributing, and so I've kind of put minus half charge on each of them. Together they add up to have one full negative charge. So what has been observed experimentally is that the bond length, the carbon oxygen bond length, is between the carbon-oxygen single bond length and the double bond length. So it is longer than the double bond length but shorter than the single bond length. Let's look at another example, benzene. So in case of benzene, you have three double bonds right here. These electrons can be delocalized and they move and they jump across and they move along the ring. So this is a resonance structure, another resonance structure that can be drawn for benzene. And so benzene hybrid resonance structure is shown with a dotted red dotted line right here, showing that the pi electrons are delocalized. These are the pi electrons are the electrons from the double bond, which are shown in red color. So in case of benzene, the actual carbon-carbon bond length is again between a single bond and double bond. Experimentally, it has been verified. So let's move on and talk more about other resonance structures. So this is an example of phosphate ion. You can see in phosphate ion there are three negative charges on each oxygen. So we have one negative charge on one. This oxygen, there's another one here, and the third one is here. So there are three negative charges. These three negative charges can move around on any of the four oxygen atoms, and so you get so this negative charge is jumping to form of double bond right here, and this double bond electrons are jumping to form a negative charge here. So this is a resonance structure. So we can draw four resonance structures. Also look at the phosphorus right here. So count the number of electrons around phosphorus. So you have 2 plus 2, 4, 4 plus 2, 6, and 6 plus 4 is 10. So phosphorus has 10 electrons, but it's still happy. Remember that phosphorus and sulfur belong to the third row, and so they can expand their valence shell. And each of the oxygen atoms has 8 electrons. So have the octet rule is satisfied. Okay. So the actual resonance structure is a hybrid of all the four resonance structures, and all the four are equally contributing towards the hybrid structure. So the actual phosphorus-oxygen bond length is in between a double bond and a single bond, and I've put the dotted red line to show that the electrons are delocalized, and the entire molecule has -3 charge, and I've equally distributed the -3 charge between the three oxygen atoms. So let's look at another example, which is benzyl cation right here. In this case, the positive charge is on a CH2 carbon atom, and it can delocalize into the benzene ring due to the presence of pi bonds right here. So you can draw several resonance structures, and the actual hybrid resonance structure is shown right here. You can see the dotted line showing delocalization of electrons, and it will carry the whole molecule will carry a positive charge. It's cation, benzyl cation. The actual bond length is in between a carbon-carbon single bond and a double bond. So let's look at an example like nitrosyl cation, where the resonance structures are unequal contributors to the hybrid resonance. So in case of this resonance structure right here, you can see nitrogen, it has 8 electrons around it, so it satisfies the octet rule. Oxygen also satisfies the octet rule. You have two electrons here, and then you have 6 here, so total is 8. And oxygen bears a positive charge. So this is an example where, in order to satisfy the octet rule, the most electronegative atom can still bear a positive charge because it helps us to be more stable by completing the octet. So this resonance structure is a major contributor. So this is a rule of exception to normal resonance rules. Let's look at this resonance structure. In this case, oxygen here has 2 plus 4 plus 4. So there's 8 electrons around the oxygen. So oxygen obeys the octet rule. But in case of nitrogen, you have 2 electrons here and 4 here. So only 6 electrons around nitrogen. And so it does not obey the octet rule. And so this is a minor contributor to the resonance hybrid structure. So let's look at the enolate anion example. In case of the enolate anion, the negative charge is on a carbon, and this can get delocalized. Carbon is less electronegative than oxygen, if you can recall. Electronegativity of carbon is 2.5, of oxygen is 3.5, and so oxygen can better handle the negative charge. And so this resonance structure is a major contributor, whereas the resonance structure which bears the negative charge on carbon is the minor contributor. So these are the examples where the resonance structures do not contribute equally. So we are going to look over additional examples. This is an example of cyclopentadienyl anion. Here the negative charge is on carbon and it can delocalize into the ring as shown. So you can draw 3 resonance structures for cyclopentadienyl anion, and the actual structure is a resonance hybrid of the 3 structures. Another example is a phenoxide ion, in where the oxygen has the negative charge and it can and it does get delocalized into the benzene ring. So you can see the negative charge is moving into the benzene ring, and you can draw 4 resonance structures. Methoxybenzene, also called as anisole, is a neutral molecule. Nonetheless, the lone pair of electron on oxygen can get into delocalization into the benzene ring. You can see in this case there's a positive charge on oxygen and a negative charge on the ring. Typically that's not favored, but in this case that's okay, because the stabilizing energy due to the delocalization of electrons far outweighs than the separation of charges. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.